Children are among the dead and wounded after gunmen opened fire on a bus carrying Egyptian Coptic Christians south of Cairo.
The victims had been on their way to the St. Samuel Monastery when up to 10 gunmen in 3 vehicles surrounded them and opened fire.
Well, the death count unfortunately looks as if it's set to climb. We're receiving figures also from the Health Ministry that at least 25 people have been injured, amongst them children. Ambulances are at the scene where security forces have set up a perimeter around the incident. And
large-scale terrorist activity has taken place, and we can step in and really be the hands and feet to help. And in this case, we were able to come in and help these people. Their bus was shot up by ISIS on the way down to Minya.
My husband was killed. My mother was killed the same day. My sister was killed that same day. My uncle was killed. My brother-in-law was killed. My niece was killed as well.
My daughter Murphy was the youngest one murdered. Ever since she was born, I knew she was not for me. She was for the Lord. Murphy always told me, when I grow up, I want to serve Jesus. She was sitting in the front of the bus, and she said, I am a Christian. They shot her twice.
Having met with the families who were impacted, you couldn't help but notice the absence of men in the room. It was almost all women and children because many of the men were killed that day.
These aren't people, as tragic as it would be, that were caught up in the collateral damage of war and conflict. These aren't accidents of terror. These are specific targets for being Christian.
Paul says in Romans, the Lord works all things for good for those that love him and called according to his purpose. Well, you couldn't see a more magnificent display of that, where he has taken just horrific acts of evil and turning it into good.
I was just struck by their strength and the sincerity of their faith, and the fact that they weren't mad at God. That's a real faith.
It's just incomprehensible to me that you can speak so calmly about it after the fact, and that you can speak of the Lord's goodness and the Lord's provision and the Lord's healing in the midst of all that.
It is an external, third-party, supernatural grace where these people have been touched by God and given the peace that transcends all understanding.
I think for the church to survive and to thrive and grow in the Middle East and North Africa, it requires the discipleship of new believers and existing believers, and then coming alongside people who are in desperate need. Those are critical to the growth of the church in lands where people are persecuted.
There are a wide variety of ways that Help The Persecuted is reaching into the needs of the individuals that are being served, whether it's providing a safe house for those that are in need, providing them with some money to cover utilities, maybe even just some money for some food, for some education.
I was blown away by the staff. It'd be easy to just provide financial support. They've invested their lives in these people, and I think that's much more valuable.
The people on the ground in the region know the culture. They know how to have maximum impact.
The light is piercing through the darkness, and Help The Persecuted is there as a tool that the Lord's using to do that.
It shares the love of Christ with them, but it also equips them tangibly, and there is a great, great need for both on the ground in the Middle East.
That is love of Christ on display, and that's irreplaceable.